This is Chris Hansen.
Chad doing Rip City Radio here.
This is Jamie Hudson.
This is TJ Hoochmanzada.
And I'm going to let y'all know something.
You're listening to
It just makes sense.
It just makes sense.
We are sports. We are nostalgia. We are pop culture. And we're funny sometimes.
I think overall we're just a good time.
They thought we couldn't do it. But guess what?
We're back.
Podcasts are free, and we can do whatever the hell we want.
Yeah.
We never knew what we were doing in the first place.
Yeah, that is a good point.
That is their goal, is to put the best 4 teams in the playoffs.
Going undefeated in
Doing
college
your
football
job.
is crazy. You have to
yeah.
feel for the players, the
yeah.
coaching staff at Florida State. Like, what is the point of playing?
Let me tear a guy
No.
down.
No.
Join us in the squalors.
You're looking in the mirror and calling him a loser.
Loser!
Me and you in high school
It is
games have
literally-
looked somebody in the eye and said, "You a bitch. You suck."
You're so bad at this.
I mean,
We're not the only idiots.
We're not the only idiots.
And who are we
Speaking of
To
losing,
call people out on losing bets, okay? We suck at betting.
And remember, don't be afraid to fade yourself.
oh yeah, you guys have heard about the fact that the Panera bread charged lemonade is like way over caffeinated and
Yeah,
is
it
killing
killed
people.
somebody.
It killed a second person.
It's
now.
called charged lemonade.
Yeah, it's called charged lemonade. I feel like it has 390 milligrams of caffeine, which is more than a coffee.
Are we going, or should I continue?
I mean, you can keep doing that, and then we could just have an all trivia episode of It Just Makes Sense.
I mean, that sounds boring as hell.
I would advise not doing that at our upcoming live show, which we are pleased to announce is January 10th at Jimmy's Sports Bar and Grill.
I'm on Omaha Boulevard.
I'm going to be there. I'll be there.
Will you be doing the trivia thing?
Will you be there mentally and spiritually?
Emotionally, physically, I'll be all in.
Okay. I'm depending on you.
And if you come to Jimmy's Sports Bar and you're doing like dry January, go fuck yourself. We don't want you. Actually, we want you there.
Yeah, please come.
But maybe order like the jumbo wings. Jumbo wings.
Yeah, and
They're
they
good
do.
jumbo
They got
wings.
O'Douls.
They got Horse d'Avoise.
They do.
They've got the Horse d'Avoise. So
That's also my birthday week.
the second. Yeah,
It
I know
is.
it's a day before your birthday. Or no, 3 days before your birthday.
3 days.
3 days?
3 days.
Two of my best friends have birthdays within 3 days of each other. You never remember which one's hit which. So he's the 13th. Grace is the 11th.
Oh, I thought I'm terrible with birthdays. I think you guys all know that. But I try my best to remember, and I always thought you were January 10th.
They were
13th. January.
Just to show off, because I like to, do you want me to name all
I
of
know
our
you
group's
can do it.
birthdays?
You have a great memory.
I don't even remember.
Oh,
Let me
you
just do
you
it.
haven't had a stroke. Big deal.
Oh, Mr. Man.
I am
Not like I was.
teetering on the stroke
Yeah.
for 38 years, dude. 37.
The man is an elephant through and through. He remembers everything.
What's Jared's birthday?
May 25th.
Damn.
What is Ashley's birthday?
March 24th. Braxton's is June 17th. Yours is November 2nd. Lindsay's is December 4th. Jordan and Ikram, March 2nd. Saran, July 5th. Mitch, October 13th. 14th.
Whoa, you suck.
Oh, you're so bad at this.
You're not even friends with him.
Jesse, October 30th. Bree, October
Jesse's is easy because it's the day
13th.
before.
13th. Yeah,
13th.
she's
She's
a
a day before.
Yeah.
Brody, March 9th.
If you want our security passwords, my first animal's name was Kit.
The first street I lived on was Chardonnay.
Deer Park for mine. So let's see. What other security questions can we answer to the person who continues to listen to our
It's this fucker in
podcast
Germany that's going to
Germany?
hack into everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck. We've got no money. We have no
Money?
money. We've got none of that.
What's no in German?
Nine.
Nine.
$9. $9 is what we have. $9. So, coming up, second annual live show, January 10th.
Yes.
We mentioned at the end of the pod last week. We are formally announcing it this week.
We're going to do some
Very
stuff
excited.
to get the crowd involved. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, last year we gave away Blazers
And
tickets.
I think that's in our future again.
Yeah, and maybe something more. I say we've come up with some other giveaway raffle things, whatever. Let's get people involved. It's
Like
gonna be
like spending a day with one of us.
yeah,
Your pod host of your choice.
yeah. And we're gonna raffle off a date.
Yeah.
If it's Steve, though,
Not
out.
Yeah,
not
I'm out.
going.
Yeah.
dude,
Yeah.
fuck Steve.
Not interested.
That's our one caveat.
With Tim,
We're
yeah.
pulling
hell
out
yeah.
all the big words tonight. Horst of Waz and caveat.
Caveat.
Caveat. Yeah.
Yeah, are you even French?
See, here's the thing. This guy goes and he sits courtside again at a freaking Utah Jazz Portland Trailblazers game. He flies to Salt Lake City to sit courtside. He gets a thumbs up from Malcolm Brogdon.
And one more thing.
If
we
Flex
did,
was a person,
we did fly first class.
oh, shut the front door.
Yeah.
Look at this guy.
if Flex was a person,
yeah.
it'd be this guy.
I mean, don't act like you guys wouldn't do the exact same thing if you had the opportunity.
We don't.
I humble brag.
We just don't.
Every
we
chance
don't have those opportunities. We're not fortunate enough to have those opportunities.
It's
know.
not like I'm the one providing these opportunities.
all
I
of
just
us
know
live-
the
We
right
don't have
people.
the connects.
I-
We ain't got rich connects, bro.
Not all of us live in an apartment. Or
I don't.
We live in
I don't fit in
$1.27
first class.
apartments.
So
You only fit
Technically,
in first class.
I can't.
You only fit in first class. You've just never been in first class.
I'm with the bags. That's why I'm very familiar with luggage and Tetris.
I'm with the bags.
He's with the bigs.
No, honestly, I'm so appreciative and humbled and thankful to be able to be given these opportunities. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to be like fucking pumped about it. Like, it was super cool.
You scoffed at me when I asked if you had a hot dog for that. You're like, oh no, I was just eating bao buns all night.
Short ribs, bao buns. The best part, and because yeah, I mean, if you sit courtside at an NBA game, you don't get the normal concessions.
But you have the option to grab it, right? Like, or they just
there was
won't
not-
even give you a free hot dog grab and go.
they do not lower themselves.
You know what this?
No,
What this tells me is I buddied with the wrong brother at the fucking wedding. That's all this tells me.
Yeah, you sure did.
Ike, you broke ass. You fucking Bobby, fucking Peter, Drew.
Yeah.
Why
Step your
didn't I
game
get
up.
close to the rich one so I could go to these fucking
Yeah.
games and get flown first class and all this shit?
Well, I paid for my own flight. The first class flight. I had, and I got it on a discount. I had a special code with Alaska, so we paid
Yeah.
for the upgrade.
I think I might have said 4 words to this rich brother.
Yeah,
I made the wrong strategy.
The promo code was STROKE, all capitalized.
No,
Yeah.
no. But
Strike? I don't get it.
yeah,
Such a good speller.
yeah. But no, it was very, very cool. But yeah, when you have courtside seats, there's like underneath the stadium. I think it's like this at most arenas, not stadium. Sorry, they have like a full like restaurant and buffet for those people in that
Courtside
section.
club, yeah.
Exactly. And they have wonderful, wonderful food, all you can eat. There was literally crab claws, shrimp
Nice.
cocktail, short ribs, bao buns, street corn.
And you're a big shrimp cocktail guy.
Oh, I slammed them. I slammed them. I
The
went,
shrimp cocktail was a person.
Yeah.
yeah, it's me. And it's not even like a serving tray of shrimp cocktail. It's a table dedicated
To
shrimp cocktail.
Well, you are what you eat, right? Shrimp.
Nobody's denying I have a small dick, Pete.
As
I'm
a
not
matter
the,
of fact, he's admitted it
Yeah.
several times.
I'm not the one bragging about having a huge slong. I'm not trying to compensate for anything,
As cool
Peter.
as the food experience would be, I think just like loving basketball, I just want to experience being that close and watching the speed of the game
Yeah,
from
for
the
sure.
fucking floor.
Yeah.
Because the only time I've ever been that close in a basketball game was a WNBA game. And I definitely did not get the same perks
Yeah.
for a fucking Portland Fire 2002 expansion team fucking game.
Sure, yeah, it's a little different there. At the,
Yeah. Yeah, it was an incredible game. Came down to the wire. Went into overtime. I will say, the Delta Center, which they're back to now,
Yes.
which I can appreciate. I love the Delta
Vivid
Center.
throwback.
Did Vivid go broke?
They're just not the naming rights.
Yeah, I think everybody just was like, "This is not the place," you know. But not like they weren't. Nobody was into it. The crowd wasn't hyped
Really?
until like 3 minutes left.
And it went into overtime.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then everybody was all hyphy and stuff.
But they're
I was a
usually
little-
pretty. They're usually pretty up there, right? Or is it just because the Blazers suck now?
I think it was because, and you can't really blame them, the Jazz were up by 10-plus points for 90% of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Blazers, with like 10 minutes left in the fourth, came back.
So it was one of those casual games that
Yeah.
turned into a good game.
Yeah, and then everybody got hyped up, and it was pretty intense. And obviously, I'm second row. I'm one of the only people in Blazer gear. I have my Blazer hat, red hoodie, the whole nine, and people were talking that Mormon trash.
Shut the F up.
Yeah.
Get that crap out of here.
Hey man, you look bad. A little bit more. A little bit more than that.
You ever talked trash before? Even in a
No.
Mormon way?
This is his first time.
Yeah. Wait, so who was worse then? Seahawk fan or Jazz fan? Probably Seahawk fan.
Seahawk fan for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
They were saying some
But
shitty stuff.
But yeah, but like Mormons could kind of like cut deep. They could be like, "Hey man,
Your mom doesn't love you.
yeah, you look like
feel
you've
like-
been
You've had
Kicked out
premarital
of-
sex. You're not
I feel
going
like
to
I
heaven,
would enjoy
bitch.
Mormon
Yeah.
trash talk. I would welcome it.
No, all jokes aside, people were pretty cordial. They didn't say much. But
Were you able to get any levels of intoxicated in Salt Lake City?
yeah, I mean, I don't shy away from being myself around my family anymore.
Right. All I'm saying is that like it takes a number of drinks because they measure everything. They
You
have
just got to get beers because they don't.
Yeah.
They changed the law with like the low alcohol beers.
They did.
Yeah.
So you can now get something that's over 3.5%.
Yeah.
Now
so
they
you can-
soak the shrimp in Four Loko and they
Yeah.
want you to go fucking
Yeah, that's why I was
wild.
hitting it hard.
You know what? And I think I've probably mentioned this to you before, but I don't think on the pod. Like downtown Salt Lake City is like
A lot of fun.
so fun because
Yeah.
that's where all of like the
Ne'er do wells.
the charlatans are
Yes.
all at.
Yeah.
There is some crazy stuff that happens in downtown.
Yeah.
It is and I
Really
don't-
good bars.
great bars
Yeah.
and like people just like sitting at their cars and just like puking out the side. A guy who
In
was like
Salt Lake City?
in Salt Lake City, no
Yeah,
joke.
in downtown. Yeah.
People in downtown Salt Lake have no idea how to like control their liquor, and it's great. Like a guy who was just like revving his like crotch rocket of a motorcycle, who then, and this is again December or winter, whatever, he peels out, turning right. He totally fishtails, throws himself off of his bike, and then his friends who were cheering him as he was revving his motorcycle then run, pick him back up, and then send him on his way as if this guy's good to go back on
He's
his
fine.
bike. He's good.
Hit a patch of ice.
Yeah. So
Can of corn. He'll be
multiple question marks as to one, is that the right vehicle to be driving in the winter? And two, when you know that you've been drinking and you are in downtown
probably
Salt
not.
Lake.
fine. Probably not.
A lot of people
I
have no
have
idea
to
what they're doing
give
down there.
Salt Lake City another chance. I had
Yeah,
a
you had a real bad experience.
really bad
there.
experience. I've never gone back. I have no interest in going back.
I would
feel like
de-
I got to give it another
Yeah.
chance.
Lindsay and I, one time when I was on the NBA circuit, she came with me to Salt Lake for New Year's, and the Blazers had a game there. It was great. We had a wonderful time.
Salt Lake City and the Utah Valley in general, especially during the winter time, is kind of magical
Yeah.
because it's snowing and it's
Snowy.
beautiful, like light,
Christmas.
fluffy snow, and the mountain ranges are literally surrounding
Surrounds
you.
Yeah.
It's
And
valley
they're all
snow.
white capped mountains, and it's kind of magical.
It is. Totally agree.
And they really lean in to the Christmas season. Like everything. It has lights and, all around the trees. Everywhere you go, there's decorations and, it's pretty magical. I'm glad we literally landed, and as we got out of the airport, it was snowing. And so and Jara, the last time that we've been there, she's only been there once with me. The last time we went, it was like totally dry, not anything special, just overcast. So I was glad she got to experience the snow Utah.
Good vibes.
Because it is great.
They're just not friendly with brown people with no money. That's probably why I had a really bad experience.
You also were
that very well could
super
be.
poor at the time and didn't have a credit card. So
Yeah, I didn't have a credit card. Lost my debit card in Vegas. I hitchhiked from a shuttle to a hotel, trying to get him to take my routing number. I was like, "You can take money from my checking account. I just don't have a debit card or a credit card on me. Here's my license.
Please give me a
my
hotel
routing
room."
number, my checking account number." And everyone was a little. Yeah.
Well, I will say
This
that you
man
probably
is-
would have had that same experience at any hotel in any state. Almost all of them require you to have a credit card, but I can understand your issue with that.
They were a little scared.
I would
Like
be.
I
I would
could've
be
been at
too.
home at a lot of
big
other
brown
spots.
man in Salt Lake City. He must be stealing identities.
Probably. Were you? Be honest.
If that was my only way out, yeah.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a really good time. Good to see family. Saw Chase Wild, attorney at law.
Oh, nice. We haven't even talked about. Did he talk about me?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, he did, Pete.
Oh man.
Yeah, we talked about the wedding, and he, both him and his wife Hannah were just like, they really loved all of our friends, and we're just, in some ways, they were like, oh, we're so jealous that we don't have that kind of friend group, and blah blah blah. And it's like, then why did you move to Utah?
Yeah,
Like,
these
these
to Portland.
These people had literally never met you in their lives, and they accept you with open arms and love you and want you to be a part of it. Like, move to Portland. It's, your house would cost the same. It's not like a cost of living is very much different.
Right? Yeah, Salt Lake's pretty expensive these days.
I guess they are closer to their family, but it's like, come on.
Well, I mean,
Fuck them.
technically, they're closer to their family if they're in Portland versus Philadelphia.
Exactly.
So win-win there.
Yeah.
Win, win, win. And I can't say that we absolutely won in our bets this past weekend. We did better. Screw the Jacksonville Jaguars, by the way, for everything that they did to us, both in our locks of the week,
It's
but
weird
also
that we added more picks,
And
but
we
it felt
felt better.
closer. It felt like
This one, I felt like, man, I can't, I thought
there's
that one
a
was
solid
gonna
chance
work.
to this
Yeah.
one.
I mean, we started out 4 for 4, or 4 for 4, and then
4 for 4.
Yeah, and then the last two
Sunday night and Monday night, we lost.
It's
Chiefs, and it was a Chiefs and Jags, right? You're looking at
Yeah.
those and you go,
And
damn it.
And the Chiefs, that's a fluke. Or maybe the Packers are good and the Chiefs sucks. Who knows? But then with the Jags, if Trevor Lawrence doesn't
That
go
was a
down, they
touchdown.
win. They win that game.
Yeah. I mean, if they just had a response for the prolific Jake Browning.
it's just weird that we technically lowered our odds by increasing it by 3 legs.
Right.
But it felt closer because who could have predicted that Jordan Love would go off and Jake Browning would go toe to toe with
Right.
Jacksonville.
Yeah, he looked good.
He
The
did.
only stat that probably would have made us not bet against the Chiefs is the fact that the Packers are 15-0 in December. Apparently, in the last, I don't know how many years, they're 15-0 and they don't lose in December.
It's got to be at least 3
Yeah, Kyle
years.
Shanahan. Are you talking about 49ers? Sorry, I was dialing
No,
something up.
Packers. The
Oh,
Packers are 15-0
that's right, yeah.
in December.
That's right. Yeah.
So
Matt LaFleur-
whatever
Matt LaFleur.
15. How many games you play in December? 4.
Yeah, 3,
So
4
at
games.
least 3, almost 4 years that they don't lose in December.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe that's why you get yourself a 2.5 point favorite on the road.
I do think it's funny though that excuse me, sorry. We've been trying to just hit 3 legs, and then we bet 6, and we easily hit 4.
Right. So stay tuned for our. I don't know if we'll get to our locks. We did tease it back on the Twitter. We might do that again. Kind of the reason why I brought that up a little bit early was because we have been pretty bad at this, and like we
The
are
worst.
not. We're not like trying to.
I don't
be
think we could
experts
get
here.
worse.
This has
Correct.
become a bit in itself that we
Yeah.
are just not
I
hitting.
saw something today that was like if you do like a 4+ leg parlay and you get all of them wrong, you should just push. Like it's just as hard to get all of them wrong.
All of them wrong, right? It was pretty funny though because I felt a little bit of vindication, and this was after Thursday Night Football. Let's see, last week or a week ago. Something like that, where I saw this video way after it happened. And this was the Thursday night game between the Dallas Cowboys and the Seattle Seahawks. And this is a game that hit like 41 or 42 points at halftime. Right, this was one of those games where originally the over-under was 47 points on Thursday Night Football, and it gets to 42. They had 60-plus points that were scored. So I saw this guy. I have no idea what his name is, but he has a background, and he's trying to like act like he is giving expert analysis.
This is the BR betting guy.
Is this a BR betting guy?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he is talking here about the Thursday night football game between the Dallas Cowboys and the Seattle Seahawks. Again, with the knowledge of the over-under and all this stuff. I forget exactly what the finish of this game was, but there were like 70 points scored in this game, and equally by each team. So here is his expert analysis on this game.
Vegas has made a huge mistake for Thursday Night Football, and we're going to take advantage of it. Both of these teams played last week on Thanksgiving, but had very different results. Cowboys blew out the Commanders at home, and the Seahawks got blown out by the 49ers. Seattle's in a brutal stretch of their schedule right now, and they could legitimately end up out of the playoff race by the time it's over. You have a banged-up Geno Smith going into Dallas, having to deal with a pass rush that's ranked second in the league per PFF, and historically in his career, he's always struggled to make plays under pressure. I'm also expecting the Cowboy offense to cool off a little bit after putting up 78 points in their last two games combined. And if we take a closer look at their Thanksgiving game, they actually only had 20 points going into the fourth quarter until Washington made some huge mistakes and the game just got out of hand. Primetime unders over the last 5 years are hitting at a rate of 63%. With the Cowboys defense being as good as it is this year, I just do not see how Seattle's going to score a ton of points here. And I can see Dallas coming back down to earth offensively, which makes me think that this total is set a little bit too high at 47.5. We're going to be taking the under in this game and hope for another snooze fest like we had on Monday night. Let me know what you guys think. If you want to join us for the entire weekend, just hit up the profile. Let's get it.
No, thank you, sir.
So
No,
I mean,
thank
we're
you,
not the
sir.
only idiots.
We're not the only idiots.
It's funny that you're clowning him pretty hard for somebody who relies on analytics and stats, which is
Trust
exactly
your gut, Miguel.
what is his thing is based off of.
Yeah, so that game, by the way, the final was 41-35 in favor of the Cowboys in that game. So little over 47.5.
I'm not going to brush over this. You are literally clowning on the guy for doing the same shit that you do. You're the only one out of us three who bets like he does.
Let me tear a guy
No.
down.
No. You
Let
go
me
by
tear him down.
percentages and analytics.
Join us in the squalor.
You're looking in the mirror and calling him a loser.
Yeah. Loser! 149 over 63% hit rate.
Yeah. So welcome to the sellers of sports gambling, Mr. BR betting or whoever you are.
Blow me.
Which is about what I think Ime Udoka said to LeBron James here.
Your best friend.
Yeah. This was something that
Become
we
a
were...
Udoka lover all of a sudden.
I didn't have an opinion on Ime Udoka before this. Before we get into the college football playoff and all this other stuff, this was a debate that Miguel and I were having prior to. And it had to deal with Ime Udoka getting tossed from a game, LeBron getting a technical foul, because LeBron had this fake outrage, in my opinion, where he was saying, like, Ime Udoka was telling LeBron and the Lakers to stop bitching. And saying, like, stop complaining, stop bitching. LeBron comes over and he says, stop using that word so loosely. Stop using that word so loosely. And then Ime Udoka calls LeBron a soft-ass boy and gets himself ejected from the game. LeBron gets the technical. My thought process was, like, there's nothing controversial about calling or saying that someone is bitching or saying that guys are bitches for complaining. And so I thought that it was like very just like selective outrage on LeBron's part to be like, oh, look, Ime, like, you know, you're saying something so controversial. And I was just like, come on, man. Like, that's just part of the trash talk or whatever. You tell someone to stop bitching all the time. I tell my 4-year-old son to stop bitching.
It's kind of selective outrage on your part, too, as a liberal from Portland. Don't you think?
No, I don't. There's nothing controversial about what Ime Udoka said.
Lib.
That's all you got.
That's all he's got in this whole argument now at this point.
No,
it's just because I hate LeBron.
Well, it's that part is true. There's nothing, no route LeBron could have taken if he said something that the guys would have thought was cool as he was talking shit. You would nitpick it and find something.
The fact that these guys are like always like scoreboard or all this stuff, like, you know, you don't hold a candle to me.
Let's go to the actual.
Versus like, oh, clutching my pearls at you calling us bitches.
Let's go. I think you're focused on one particular part of the whole debacle. Let's focus on the shit talking part because that's really where it all started. So I feel that Udoka would have had more of a not to give him reasons why he should have been talking shit, but if this was like LeBron complaining against the Celtics where he's like on his knees and going crazy, then I would have been like, calm the fuck down. But it seemed like Udoka was just waiting for an opportunity to say something to the guy who complained by going,
Stop using that so loosely. Stop using it like. Who are you
I'm
defending?
I'm talking before that. As he was throwing his arm, he starts talking shit, and it's like something that he's been wanting to say to him for a long time.
Sure, was LeBron's like outrage in that moment muted? Yes, because LeBron has been a lot more performative in what he has done. Did Ime in that moment decide?
Dude.
But also, I think
Ime escalated that. Yes,
but I also think Ime's response when I watched the clip, it was to the group as a whole.
Yeah.
It wasn't just to LeBron. There was several people involved on the play, and he was saying, oh, stop being a bunch of bitches. Stop bitching. Stop bitching.
A lot of it was directed towards LeBron. It was like, soft-ass boy, what are you going to do?
But
are
that
you
was
gonna do
LeBron
something?
walked towards him.
Yeah, that
like
was
LeBron
after.
was out like under the basket, and then LeBron comes out and it was like, stop using that so loosely, as if he was like somehow defending women everywhere. That all of a sudden,
I feel like that point is a reach. That your point is a reach.
What's so controversial about
because
calling people bitches?
anyone could take the don't use that term so loosely and take that in different directions. There's nothing clear where he was taking that and what he meant by it. You are deciding to pin that on your particular point, and you're saying that it's about women. Like, that is your reach.
Okay,
anyone could have taken that in different directions.
Okay, so where was LeBron when you could clearly see Chris Paul saying "you a bitch" to Scott Foster? You didn't hear him come out and say, "Hey,
yeah, that's his friend.
my best friend, Chris Paul. Well, why are you calling Scott Foster a bitch? You're using
There's
that
no
way
denying
too loosely."
he's a calculated guy. He's a social media guy. Everything he does, he talks about himself. He says he's great instead of letting other people say he's great. There's no denying that. The thing is, if we're gonna go down to like, who looks worse in this whole altercation, the fucking player or a coach who's supposed to technically hold himself to a higher standard by not talking shit to a player?
Yeah, the adulterer is supposed to hold himself to a higher standard. But yeah,
you're the coach. You're talking shit to a player because you're butthurt that he cooked you for however many seasons that you played, and it finally came out when you got an opportunity to say something to his face.
I do agree with that point. If we're boiling it down to you're the coach, you need to be more mature and be able to control yourself in this situation, then yeah, I agree with that. I also agree with Peter in the sense that LeBron himself, players that he's played with, friends of his, everybody on that court has told somebody when they're playing against them, me and you in high school games, has looked somebody in the eye and said, "You a bitch."
It's literally like the most common thing that you say to someone as an insult.
And so for LeBron to kind of all of a sudden have this like holier than thou, like, hey, regardless if it's, you know, protecting women's rights or whatever the motivation behind it is, it's a little like, Bron, you kind of are soft for
wouldn't it be?
Wouldn't call him a boy?
Wouldn't
but
it be
yeah.
more annoying? Like, I think I would definitely side with you guys, and I would find it more annoying if that comment from Ime Udoka triggered him to like go nuts and have an actual rage reaction. Like, how dare you say the B word? How dare you do that? But he literally did it, and like,
if he was like, shut the F up.
Yeah, if he was like, shut the F up, dude. But he's like, don't use that term so loosely.
You?
There's like a part of me, not to defend LeBron, but like like there's so many people like Peter who just find everything that it makes me like find why he does the things that he does, and there's a part of me that comment was like a smart ass comeback. Don't use that term so loosely. Versus like, shut the fuck up, dude. How dare you say bitch?
You think
yeah,
that
and we kind of talked about this earlier. Like the calm, like when somebody's freaking out at you in a sports environment, and you're able to kind of just look them in the eye and be calm and be logical.
Like, chill, dude.
That there is some benefit to that, but I do think it's like, Bron, I guarantee we can go back through your a million years in the NBA and find a dozen plus times that you've called somebody a bitch.
This is something that literally just came to my mind that I didn't consider in this argument. Is it possible that he was saying don't use that term so loosely as turning it back around to call Ime Udoka a bitch? Like,
again, you can take it in a lot of different directions.
Yeah, possibly. But
I mean, it was like
think,
a really long way
again,
around.
If you're arguing for either side,
insult.
It's like you'll find why LeBron's a bitch the same way that you'll find why Udoka was a bitch for doing what he did.
Yeah, and I think that both of them are kind of bitchy in this circumstance.
Right. Neither of them look very mature.
I think the history between the two of them and knowing how LeBron has succeeded over Ime Udoka in their playing days, I feel like LeBron could have figuratively dunked on him in a much better way.
Like,
than
would
just
we
being
have
like,
known?
hey, bro.
Would we have known Udoka if he didn't become a coach?
I hardly knew him when you guys brought this up.
You're like, who? When we talk about like fake outrage and everything, I think that segues.
We talk about Peter Sokach.
I think that leads us to our very next point, which is like everything that has happened this past weekend as it pertains to the college football playoff.
Wild weekend.
So many different people have come out of the woodwork because of it. And
Saturday at dinner, you were telling me that they have to come. Like, we had just finished the games. We were out to dinner on Saturday, and we're like, oh, yeah, they have to make a decision by tomorrow morning.
You're like, there's no way.
There's not enough time for them to, like, create chaos by coming up with this less than 8 hours from now. Like, they're fucked.
Yeah. And so, Florida State had just beaten Louisville. And
barely.
Barely. And then, Texas rolls Oklahoma State. Alabama wins a very close game against Georgia. And now in that evening and in the hours after that, obviously you had a lot of lobbying to do. Washington beats Oregon. We'll get into that here in a little bit. But when you talk about the fake outrage that I feel like kind of comes with this, you get at the very end of it, we all know by now, 1 Michigan, 2 Washington, Alabama, or Texas number 3, and Alabama number 4. And I get to a degree people's logic about Florida State. But this type of outrage is what I don't understand.
The undefeated Power 5 champ.
Well, I'm going to completely disagree with you. To me, this is a travesty to the sport. Because we go out there on the field and we play the game. And regardless of whether it looks good at the quarterback position, regardless of whether we win with offense, whether we win with defense, the name of the game is to win. And that's a reason never before has this not been done. Winning a Power 5 conference, going undefeated, and not getting into the playoff. So I understand we want to look at style points and who are we going to get for the best matchups. But that's not what this is about. This is about understanding to get the 4 best teams. One team has a loss, and that's Alabama. One team doesn't in Florida State. And the fact that this committee could take a Power 5 conference champion that's undefeated. Those kids have went out there and busted their behind and not get into the playoff based on the eye test. Mind you, this is the same Alabama team who needed a prayer in Jordan Hare to beat an Auburn team that lost to New Mexico State. So that's really what has me bothered right now.
Reese,
Go ahead.
I got to be honest. I kind of agree.
I don't like Booger McFarland, but I absolutely agree. Here's the thing. There's always going to be two different takes. There's takes from the fans, which would agree with that 4. But if you're a player, you do not have the same stance as fans because you're the one playing the fucking games. And this has never, ever happened before. A Power 5 undefeated team doesn't get in.
I mean, we haven't had this kind of top
and two
heavy.
one-loss teams
Get in. Yeah.
I mean,
And a team that was number 1 all year,
And
all of a sudden find them
eye
1
test,
or 2 all year.
can we say that, would Florida State get absolutely demolished by any of the 4? Probably. I agree with that.
But the average margin of victory in the playoff is like 30 points. That's happened every single year. Somebody gets blown out. Like, and that's the thing. And I think I said this multiple times last week and the week before that we've talked about this leading up. How is the committee going to take a number 7, number 8 team, number 8, number 9 team in Bama and Texas, and all of a sudden they're going to jump over a team that they've had in the top 4 since the rankings have come out?
Yeah.
How can they possibly do that?
Besides eye test, you also named probably the 2 most powerful booster programs in college football.
Yeah.
Money, TV, everything. Alabama and Texas are the 2 most powerful. Like Florida State, Washington, they don't even match up to them. If there's a chance that they could be put in there, they're doing it. And it sucks. It's not fair.
And I don't think you can use the backup quarterback argument because we talked about last week. Cardale Jones with Ohio State, backup quarterback, came in right before the national championship and they fucking won. Like, and I think, there's an argument that you can make that the second string quarterback, he didn't even start in that game, did he?
No, he was in concussion protocol.
Exactly, and he would be back for the playoff games.
It was still an ugly game. It wasn't.
Yeah.
I mean, like they couldn't even throw for 100 yards.
But then you say, they barely beat Louisville, and it's like, okay, Louisville's a pretty good team. They're top 15 ranked. Auburn is not a very good team. They barely beat them. So I tend to agree with
the
this.
Auburn-Alabama game. To me, is when you come into rivalry week, I don't know. I always feel like all bets are off in those types of games. But I understand.
But
what
still,
you're saying.
if you're going to make the same comparison of like, they had a close game, it was a conference championship game. That holds the same weight as a rivalry game, if not more.
To your point, because at this point you're nitpicking. That's what the committee is doing. Is they're nitpicking, and the reasoning behind, if I watch, I don't know if it was First Take, but the reasoning behind leaving Florida State out is because they, as a committee, the entire committee watched the whole game, and they said they kept looking at each other and they said Florida State could barely get first downs. It was 3-3 at half. How is this going to be a good playoff game against any of the powerhouse teams that we have in there?
Yeah, because
that was where the decision was from.
Yeah, I mean, what you have now is because you're bringing subjective and objective things into this, and we're going to talk here in a second about what the BCS would have done against what the college football.
Will you look up the Mike
playoff.
Leach committee
I have
speech?
That. I do
Please.
have that here as well.
That's great.
So the Mike Leach, rest his soul, was spot on a few years ago. But the point that I want to make is that the fundamental problem is a 4-team playoff with a Power 5 conference, with Power 5 conferences. And I mean, I know that some people were talking about wanting to move it up and all this stuff. This is really the first year that we've absolutely seen the quote-unquote worst-case scenario, right? Like, there's always been a little bit of debate, but, there's never been this level of, outrage to the level that, you're leaving an undefeated team out and you're bringing 2 one-loss teams in. And the thing is that if you were going to bring Texas in, you were going to bring, or if you were going to bring Alabama in,
you have to bring Texas.
Have to
They
bring
were
Texas
tied
in.
together.
And so those guys were always tied together because of the head-to-head.
Yeah. Do you think that because the committee knows that, hey, this is our last year, that we're going to have, because I'm sure they're going to have the committee going forward, but when we go to the 12-team playoff, there's going to be like secured spots. Like if you win the ACC, Pac-12, well, not the Pac-12, Big 10, Big 12, SEC, you're in. Like, though, you're going to have guaranteed spots in this 12-team playoff, whereas the committee is going to have less decision-making power. Excuse me, and it's not going to be as like important in choosing the 13, 14, 15 teams to take that 12 spot is not going to be as important as choosing the fourth. Do you think they were just like, we're going to flex, we can do whatever the fuck we want, it doesn't matter, we are the committee, we have power, we're going to show it?
Yes, but I also think that like they somewhat stayed true to what they were saying in what they consider within the playoff. And injuries definitely.
Then why didn't they represent that in the rankings leading up?
That I think is the biggest question mark, right? Like, I mean,
why have Florida State top 4 all the weeks leading up?
That was their biggest error. Their biggest error was keeping Florida State around, putting them in and back out and all this other stuff. When that injury happened...
Put them at the 5 position.
They did. When they lost, when Florida State...
they put Washington.
They put them at 5. Yeah,
and
so Washington and Florida State was out.
But they moved them back in.
They did it. They did move them back in, yeah. Because Ohio State lost, right? So you moved them back in because of where you had put them in after you lost Jordan Travis. They should have put them at 9 or 10. They should have eliminated them totally from that. Sorry. There's other teams as well that, like, either weren't bowl eligible or, there's a whole UCF issue
it should have been
a couple years ago.
If you guys wanted, if you're going to make this decision in the end, it should have been Oregon 5, or Texas 6, Alabama 7.
Yeah, they should have absolutely, if they were actually considering that, they should have eliminated them like a long time ago. As soon as that injury happened, sorry, this is how we view it. Whether you like it or not, that's how it is.
The funny thing is, to go back to your point, I don't know if it's a we don't give a fuck, it's going to change next year type of move. The only thing that the 12-team playoff is going to solve is it's going to have a spot for all the power conferences.
Right, but what are the power conferences now that the Pac-12 is eliminated?
We don't know, but you have to remember, if we dial back to when we were going through BCS, everyone, and I mean everyone, including us, was like, 14 playoff solves everything.
I think we said 8 did, but yeah.
No, I never said that. I'll be honest. I never thought a 4-team playoff.
But the BCS was so fucked.
It was better. We had
at least had calculations.
We had co-champions. We had somebody like completely missing out, playing in a shitty bowl game they didn't want to play in. Yeah. Everyone in the fucking universe thought 14 playoff is the answer. Now we're thinking 12-team playoff is the answer. This is going to fix all of this shit that's happening right now. There's always going to be a problem because we're going to get used to the 12-team playoff. Someone is still going to get left out once we get used to that.
The 8 would have worked, I thought.
In hindsight, we're all saying this.
But now. Listen, when they introduced the thought of introducing a playoff, I always said 8 minimum. When they decided 4, I remember thinking, this is going to get ugly for these exact reasons. Yeah. But here's the thing. Just like I said before, 12-team playoff, you're not going to get as much noise coming from the number 13, 14, 15 team.
Right.
It's not. Look at the standings right now. Who is that? Fucking Liberty?
Liberty was like 23, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
A lot of
Oklahoma?
Things, it's easy for us to say, but when you change the format of something that people are used to, the problems that could happen, we're not seeing yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm sure.
When it was BCS,
new problems will arise.
New problems that we're not seeing yet from a different structure.
Every action has a consequence.
Because BCS, it was always like 1 or 2 teams were getting fucked. So technically, the 4-team playoff should take care of LSU being left out or Ohio State being left out. The 4-team playoff created this problem where a Power 5 team that's undefeated was left out. That's a new problem. That's never happened before. There will be new problems in a 12-team format. And whether that's a fucking James Madison or whatever,
I was literally just going to say
there
an
will
undefeated
be
James
outrage
Madison.
because now there's technically room for them. They can't make noise now. They can make noise when it's a 12-team structure.
With the BCS, people were wondering, like, there's no transparency because we have no idea how these computer calculations are being made.
It's shitty algorithms that we don't fucking know.
So we don't know. So then let's put the human element in. At least we'll know, and we'll at least be able to factor all of these things in, and we'll be able to have the eyeball test. People wanted the eyeball test because they're just like, wait, how in the world is this team the best? I know they're not. I can see they're not, but, like, the computers are saying they are based on all of this shitty logic. So then we get the eyeball test and people are mad about it again. And I think that, like, the 18 playoff initially would have solved the Power 5, all get in, and then everyone was already used to the at-larges, the Boise States, all of that. Then you put the 3 in. That's what I feel like you would have gotten there with the 18 playoff. Again, hindsight.
Right. The biggest hypocritical part of all this, though, is you leave Florida State out. Undefeated, winner of the Power 5. But the biggest reason you left them out is because they don't have their starting quarterback.
Yes.
Who has absolutely killed it.
Correct.
Heisman finalists come out. What is the definition of a fucking Heisman? Your team does not perform without you. You are the motor that runs this fucking team. Jordan Travis is not a Heisman finalist. If you're telling me that you have done something in the history of college football that's never been done before,
that's a good point. Yeah.
And you leave Jordan Travis out of the Heisman, but you're saying if he was in, Florida State would be in. How is he not important? How is he not the most important player?
Yeah, we're in a world of hypocrisies, right? Yeah, for sure. Here's another thing we talk about, like quarterbacks in, quarterbacks out. And I've all seen, like, maybe we've seen these, like, different comparisons, like, oh, would you leave the Eagles out of the NFL playoffs if they didn't have Carson Wentz? Well, then Nick Foles comes in and he wins them a Super Bowl, right? I feel like that's a little different than the NFL. I thought the most apt comparison was, what would you have done if in the Big 12 championship, right at the end of it, if Quin Ewers gets hurt, but they're still up 48-21 or whatever the final score was.
Yeah.
Who's your backup at Texas? Arch Manning. So Arch Manning is the most, like, sought-after recruit. Everyone knows the name. Everyone has the notoriety. He's the next coming up. They would still probably be in, right? But that's a backup quarterback, right?
Yeah.
But people would tune in for the ratings. They would tune in to see Arch Manning. And, there's been reports that came out about, ESPN saved themselves about $150 million in potential losses by having Alabama and Texas in versus, like, a Florida State, because a Florida State would have been a 2-touchdown game.
It's a ratings move. It's a TV and ratings move. Now,
but isn't that kind of what you want? Like, that we've talked about, how shitty these games have been.
Saying,
we saw what, like,
as fans
happened with TCU last year.
We probably agree with the top 4 because we want good games.
I think that's the right. I think those 4 were the right. I'm on record as saying that those are the 4 right things.
Yes, but as a player at
as
Florida
a team,
State, as a team, that's shit, man.
Yeah. And I think the question comes down to, because as we said, I agree with Booger on that take. It doesn't make sense. And I think that's the phrase I'll stick with, is it doesn't make sense. However, do you think the best 4 teams are in the playoffs?
Yes.
And the committee, all their
I
faults
think they
aside,
got it right.
That is their goal, is to put the best 4 teams in the playoffs. So there's a part of me that's a little, strained, because I think it is fucked up that Florida State isn't in it. I think that they do deserve to be in that playoff. But I do not think that they are one of the best 4 teams.
I just think you can, as an unbiased person, see both sides. You have to feel for the players, coaching staff at Florida State. Like, what is the point of playing? What is the point of going going undefeated in college football is crazy. That's crazy. That's something we're not even talking about. Georgia. This is their first loss in fucking 3 years.
Yeah.
How are we not talking about them? Yeah, they lost in the SEC championship, but as fans, this is probably the best 4. Now, we could be sitting here.
They potentially kicked out the best team out of everyone.
Yeah. Now, could we look like idiots if, like, Texas blows out Washington. We're like, yeah, best games of my ass. They won by 30.
Right.
You know, that's happened before.
Which is like, I think that game's 4.5 right now. Opening line was 4.5 in favor of Texas. Then you have 1.5 in favor of Alabama in that semifinal game against Michigan.
There's just something besides an eye test. Like if we're sitting here as college football fans and someone tells you, hey, by the way, top 4, Michigan, Alabama, Washington, Texas. You're like, yeah.
Yeah.
Versus like Michigan, Alabama, or Michigan, Texas, Washington, Florida State. And you're like, well, that other one's going to be shit.
It's an absolutely terrible, like, optics, precedent, all those things to say you won every game. You were a Power 5 team. You overcame adversity by, losing your starting quarterback, losing your backup, and still winning in a championship game. And then them saying that's not
Question
good enough.
is,
but they still get it right?
Let's go to your hypothetical. Texas loses to Texas wins against Oklahoma State, but Arch Manning isn't the backup. It's some no name as a backup.
Right.
Does Alabama get in and Texas left out?
And Georgia's in.
And Georgia, do you put 2 SEC? I mean, they could have gone.
Yeah.
That would have been absolute chaos if it's not Arch Manning.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
I think that the one thing that they did do well is that they took the 4 strongest conferences and they took their champions and they put them in.
Yeah, and finally the Big 12 has a champion. I remember that was a big thing a few years ago as well. When it came to like the TCUs
and we're about to watch this video, which is such an embodiment of what we're talking about right now.
Right, and so here's R.I.P. to Mike Leach. But Mike Leach
knew it all along.
Back in 2016, 2017, when he was the head coach at Washington State, nails it.
Playoff, somehow establishes something, and that's a very clever approach. I mean, that's such a brilliant approach. That's why everybody does it that way. I mean, nobody does it that way. I mean, if we were so smart, wouldn't all the other sports say, I know what, let's have a committee, because why not? Because, we're American, we love committees. Let's get us a committee. Well, who should be on the committee? Well, I don't know. This guy's a good guy. Let's have him on the committee. Well, I mean, there's people on the committee that don't even have remote associations with football, nor have they at any level other than being a fan. But you know what? Let's have them on a committee. Why not? And then, I mean, it'd be fun. We'd go to that resort. We could talk, we could hang out at dinner, and then we'll decide which 4 teams should go. Because you know why? We don't need to solve this on the field, because we're the ones that know. And then, so, I mean, if we're going to do it that way, we should just ask them at the beginning of the season, just go ahead and you guys vote on it, figure out 1, 2, 3, and 4, and why even have the games? To me, I mean, it's not a playoff. There's nothing playoff about it. And this is even if we make it. Even if we make it, my thoughts don't change. I mean, how can you call it a playoff when there's 4 teams? Conference champions don't even necessarily
make it. Yeah, and that's what he says there. So, and too, you think about baseball and all these other things too. It's like, do you think that MLB wanted a Texas Rangers and Arizona Diamondbacks World Series? No, but they solved it through the proper processes, and that's who won, right? So,
and I agree with Miguel. We're going to move to this 12-team playoff, which I think will solve some issues.
New ones will arise.
But new ones will arise. New fan bases will be pissed off. But I think it's going to be, like I said, it's new fan bases that haven't had the opportunity to be pissed off at this. And to get that opportunity to even be in there and get blown out by an Alabama, at least you can say, hey, my Tulane team made it to the playoff, or an Oregon State or whomever, Missouri. Some of these teams who have never even sniffed a college football playoff, and for recruiting as well. Like, hey, we can get you to that college football playoff. I think it brings opportunity that is going to be exciting. And I think having 3 rounds, 4 rounds of playoffs, when we get settled down to that final 2 and we have a winner, it's going to be a lot easier to be like they are the deserving team.
Right. I mean, I think that what the committee did, I don't know if it's well, but like when you have almost a de facto playoff game when you put Florida State against Georgia, right? Like we all thought that it could have possibly been number 1 Georgia versus number 4 Florida State. Now, what are each team's motivation now that either is out of the playoff, who is going to play versus who is not going to play, who's going to use this as a chip on their shoulder, who's not going to show up because of it? That is yet to be seen, right? But you do get a Florida or a Georgia Florida State Orange Bowl game. So there's that. I don't know if that makes people feel any better. I don't know if I'm Florida State if I all of a sudden want to be playing in that game because you're
going to get smashed.
Yeah, you're going to get smashed. You're going to lose by 2 touchdowns. It's going to go exactly the way that it would have gone if you were in the playoff, regardless
And you know the committee's going to feel vindicated.
Right, they will feel
but
that.
at least people get to see it. It's not it's not an assumption.
Yeah.
Because I don't know the best way to solve everything. A lot of teams are rolling hot coming into the playoff, but J.J. Watt's solution is what I agree with. J.J. Watt had tweeted.
That's a first.
Look no further.
Watt.
I'm just saying, J.J. Watt
doesn't
doesn't have a lot of great solutions in general.
I just never would have thought that that's where we were going to find all of our answers.
J.J. Watt had a solution of a 6-team emergency playoff based on this.
Oh yeah, I did see that.
I thought it was great. It was Michigan and Washington as a top 2 get a bye, and then the next 4 play each other, and then the winners of those make it to the top 4. It's an emergency with an extra game.
One.
I do think that of all the years to introduce the 12-team playoff, this was the year.
Yeah, and I was listening to the Dan Patrick show, and they were talking about how they were hoping to move this up by a year and to have it this year, but they just were unable to do it.
Why not?
Right. I know. It's one of those things where it's kind of like every contract can be broken if everyone mutually
This is
agrees to
America.
break it. Yeah, exactly. Break it now and then just introduce it now. But again, I think that
cancellation fee was too much.
Too much on the cancellation fee. We have up if we did have a simulated BCS using those old models with what the college football playoff committee has. Obviously, like we said, Michigan, Washington, Texas, Alabama is your 4. If it were up to the BCS, it would have gone Michigan, Washington, Alabama, Florida State. So Texas would have been the first team out. Georgia would have dropped to number 6.
That would have created less of an outrage, but there would still be outrage mostly from Georgia. But it would have...
The Alabama-Texas thing is probably the most controversial thing at that point.
At this point, you would get a little resistance from Georgia fans, but this would have been the right one. Technically, not as it wouldn't have been exciting for us as fans.
I
that
think
would have been
still
the right one.
I still think they got it right with this one, right? Like Georgia is
you never
a victim.
played sports, you don't get it.
It doesn't matter. I mean, like you're looking at like the timing of everything. Georgia is the winner of the worst timing award, right? Like I mean, they've been the best team. They've been in back-to-back championships, but you lose your title game and you have 4 Power 5 champions, and you reserve yourself to say we need to eliminate one champion here. Okay, let's take the one that doesn't have a backup quarterback or a third-string quarterback.
Yeah, just the weakest.
And it just so happens that Florida State is that one. So, I mean, if you were to say that, like, if, I don't know, Florida State lost a game at any point in the season, we wouldn't have that outrage. But, and like, you know, I saw Kirby Smart's lobbying and everything too about saying like, oh, well, like, it's not about like records. It's about who the best 4 are, and we're one of the best 4. It's like, again, you could find your way into this all you want. Regardless of everything, you know what really, something that was interesting about this I was thinking about is, one, how much Oregon blew it on Friday. They
blew
it for a second time in a championship game to get back your 10-point, 10-point favorite over Washington. You have the Heisman Trophy final, favorite at this point, and Bo Nix throws an interception that was very uncharacteristic. You find yourself playing from behind this whole game.
After a Penix interception, that was like, this is what we needed. This is how we get back and win this game. And not 3 plays later, Bo Nix throws him his 4th interception of the year.
Yeah.
Like, this guy hasn't made mistakes at all.
Yeah.
And he throws one right to the guy. But I'll be honest. As soon as I saw that throw go into the ref's chest, I was like, we're not winning this game.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was
that I've been saying it all year. The DBs got fucking burned.
Yeah.
I mean, Penix burned those DBs all game.
Yeah.
All game.
Well,
He
and the
was
defense
right
as
there.
the defense as a whole, just it was like they forgot what they were doing. Like the defense has been kind of a shining. I mean, we've talked about this over and over again all season. This is an Oregon defense that is unlike anything else we've seen. They have the size, they have the strength, they also have the speed. Like, these are things that we have debated about and talked about, and they've shown. Oregon has been able to blow out teams this year like they haven't been able to do in a long time. And they've done it a lot of the times with defense, not just only their fast-paced offensive and offensive skill. They did it because they were able to hold people at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, that switch turned off. They couldn't get to the quarterback. They couldn't defend, on the second level. It was honestly,
different team.
Yeah, and I don't think I've been more heartbroken about a Oregon loss in a long, long time.
See,
it was just
because
like,
you knew what they were capable of.
yeah, and it was
then
just like
that
it was
wasn't
totally
it.
uncharacteristic of anything they had shown that season, except. And not even in the first Washington game. In the first Washington game, they were with it. They kept up. They scored when they scored. They were, keeping up in the game. And it was just like, it was like watching your kid who you've seen hit, home run after home run after home run in practice, and then he steps up in the game and he strikes out 4 times in a row
and can't swing at
falling
anything.
on his ass.
Man.
At the plate, and it's like, what the fuck is going on?
The 2 games between them have been very similar. The fact that it's a 3-point game and it was a back and forth. I mean, Tez Johnson had fucking 100 and something yards. I mean, he was catching everything the same way that Odunze was catching everything. I understand that both teams made mistakes, especially uncharacteristic mistakes by Oregon and Bo Nix. I am saying it's not all Oregon's mistakes. Penix ruined them.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean,
found gaps.
Those top passes where he knew that the DBs could not keep up.
Yeah.
And they
knew he had it.
They're not even like that wide open. Those pockets where he was dumping them, there was a pass where there were 2 DBs and Odunze was right in the middle. He was dumping that like a fucking hot air balloon, was just delivering it right.
Oh, he was lacing it.
It was insane.
He was lacing
how money he was playing.
And I'm not trying to take away from that.
Yeah, I'm saying he gets a lot of credit.
Lights out. There's no doubt about it. But I also think there's no denying that, just like I said, you've seen a team do something so consistently throughout the season and do it at such a high level that you come into this game. We both had such high confidence on.
Where
this
did it
defense.
go wrong, though? Was it the fact that they were favored by 10? Was it Washington scheming?
No, I'll tell you where it went wrong. Outside of giving credit to Penix, you have to give credit to Washington coaching staff.
Yeah, DeBoer had those guys ready.
One of the things that Washington was having trouble with from watching the first game is that D-line was getting through like fucking crazy.
And they
see how much time Penix had
a lot
on the Pac-12 championship game? Their O-line, I don't know what drills they did. They stepped up big time, and Penix had all the fucking time. And there was one pass where he had 7 seconds back there. He literally just sat in the pocket, and no one was getting through him.
Does the conspiracy theory
huge.
in you wonder, like, man, was Penix performing there at the end of the Apple Cup game to make people think, what's going on with Penix, and could something be going on? You know, like all these tiny little, like, nuanced things to be like, how in the world does Oregon become such a big favorite? How much psychologically does that to a person, in addition to everything?
I mean, I know you got your tinfoil hat on, Pete, but when you're playing in those big stages, you're not thinking about shit like that. I mean, there's so much pressure on you already.
And all in all, for that Oregon team to be down 18 points, 17 points, to come back, to get it within or go up 3, go down 10 with 2 minutes left, to score a touchdown within 20 seconds to get it back to 3. It's just one of those situations. Too little, too late.
Too little, too late.
Honestly,
for sure.
Because it's like they flipped the switch. At
the wrong time.
At the mid-third quarter, or after halftime, they flipped the switch.
I mean, they outscored them 21-0, right, in the third quarter.
Exactly.
So.
And it's just like, damn, because you could see in those moments that this is a dominant team.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I don't. And here's the thing: is there's so much experience on that team. A lot of SEC guys. You got Bo Nix, who's played 5 years in SEC and in Pac-12. Very
it's
high.
not like he wasn't ready for that moment.
Exactly. And it's like, why did you come out like, it just seemed like you came out a little scared, or no, maybe not scared, or just like unprepared.
I'll tell you,
for the lights.
Besides giving credit to the coaching staff for the O-line, they didn't let Bucky run. That was also huge.
Huge impact.
I mean,
of the
Bucky
game,
barely had any rushing yards. Now, from an Oregon standpoint, as an Oregon fan, I feel like if I was an Oregon fan, I could accept that. I could accept that loss. The reason it stings as an Oregon fan is this is the closest you've felt outside of national championship against Auburn in 2010. Sure. This is probably as close as it's been in 13 years, and you felt it with an experienced quarterback, an SEC coach, and a defense that's been better than the last several years. But they didn't play bad. They just got beat by a team that's a little bit better than them.
I mean, but
because if they came out and got blown out,
play bad though.
To their standards, yes. But in the eye test of watching a football game, I would have been upset if Oregon got blown out 35-7. Like, you came out on a Pac-12 championship and did nothing, but they didn't. They played well. It's small mistakes.
Here's where I'll disagree. They played bad for a quarter and a half. The first quarter and half of the second quarter, they fucking played bad.
Yeah, when Bo Nix hasn't thrown an interception essentially all year.
Exactly, and I totally agree with you with the Bucky Irving thing. They were that first quarter. I think they started every drive with a pass. They started every first down passing, and they put themselves, and it was incomplete passes every time. So they came into a 2nd and 10 where they had to pass again. They were putting themselves in a corner where they couldn't run the fucking ball, when that is something that has been dominant in their offense. Like, why aren't we starting off drives, handing the ball to James Jordan, Bucky Irving, these guys who are,
or design QB run. Right.
Or QB draws. It was just like, I think they got a little cute coaching-wise. They were trying to do things that weren't, quote-unquote, them. It wasn't their identity. And they got backed into a corner where they were like, okay, well, let's just do what we're used to do. And that's when they started coming back.
Right. It was
when they started doing the shit
it only takes one small thing to get in your head to change your entire scheme.
Exactly.
But and this is armchair coaching. This is us as fans. What separates like the Nick Sabans and the Urban Meyers of the world? Sometimes when a game isn't going your way, when your stars, the Bucky Irvings or the Troy Franklins, are not doing it, this is where you see the Sabans and the Urban Meyer. They come out they throw you something different that you didn't plan for. And in this case, my armchair coaching strategy would be they're stopping Bucky. Let's get Jordan James going. Let's get Patrick Herbert going. Let's get Ferguson going and all this shit. And it's like they didn't plan for those guys. And sometimes you've seen an Alabama team where that's worked.
Yeah.
Or an Ohio. And I'm not saying that'll solve it, but when a team has zeroed in on a couple people, sometimes throwing a curveball changes everything. It's the same way that something in your head like changes your whole scheme.
I agree with you to a certain point. My point is let's start off being us. Let's play our type of ball, like a Nick Saban would do. Do your normal things. Hand the ball off to James Jordan. Hand the ball off to Bucky. Run these RPOs. Do that. That's what's gotten us to this point where we can set up for the long ball to Franklin. That's what Oregon football has been and succeeded this year.
But that's where I think...
But they didn't start with that.
But that's where I think you...
They tried to be different out the gate, and then they fell back to their regular sense.
But that's where I think you have to give Washington some credit right there, is because Washington came out hot, which made Oregon not be themselves. They came out quick and fast and hot. And that's what great teams do. That's why they're number 2. I told Peter on Saturday, you can't kick Washington out because they're probably the only team outside of Michigan, which the rankings show that I would agree with, 1 and 2. They're probably the only team outside of Michigan that does not have a blemish. They won their they won their conference championship. They do not have a loss, and they beat their rival twice, and once in the championship. That's what great teams do. And that great team made Oregon not be themselves from the get-go.
I agree.
They had to adjust.
I agree.
They had to go out of their normal scheme and then had to catch up, which is hard to do against Washington.
I totally agree, Miguel. And it's unfortunate because you think a guy like Dan Lanning, who has been, like, his whole motto this year is it's not about them, it's us. It's all about us, similar to Coach Prime. It doesn't matter what they do. It's about what we're doing here, and what we're doing here is the right thing. And for him to all of a sudden, step away from that motto is disappointing. And like I said before, it was very, very sad. I'm happy for Washington. They absolutely deserve it.
Is DeBoer better than Lanning?
I mean, at this juncture, yeah, I would think so.
At this point, if we're comparing resumes here, then yes, you have to say yes. But gosh, and you sent this in a text. I didn't respond because I was emotional and I didn't want to say anything to anyone at any time. But you were like talking about, Oregon State. I'm sure they're going to condescendingly say that they're not mad about this, and it's like I have never felt that way about not only any Oregon State loss that the Ducks have had, but any loss the Ducks have had. It was so saddening because, like we've been talking about, they went away from their identity. They did things that weren't quote unquote them, and it cost them. Even when they were able to step on the gas and have this great comeback and take a lead, it wasn't enough, and it was terribly, terribly saddening.
The shitty thing with how college football is structured today with the transfer portal and all that, these types of losses and these types of run that end like you hit a brick wall where you're rolling, this could ruin a program and not necessarily for Oregon. Like, I'm saying it could happen because it's so easy for kids to move around, which I don't necessarily agree with. But like Florida State, for example, what happened this year could ruin their entire program.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It ruins the conference. It ruins, like, revenue sharing. It ruins, like Mike Norvell has absolutely no case for recruits at this point.
Yeah.
You can do everything right,
if you're
and
a player,
it doesn't freaking matter.
You can go undefeated, play a lot, and you can increase your stock for the NFL, but you're not going to sniff a fucking playoff.
Yeah.
Well, thankfully, going into the 12-team playoff, that's less of an argument you could make. But One thing to kind of change the subject, I think we've beat the horse dead for sure, is the transfer portal has opened. Over 1,200 players entered the transfer portal on day fucking one.
Yeah, including DJU, a lot of Oregon State Beavers.
Think of
the both the quarterback, Chili's, whatever.
Childs, yeah.
Think of how
Chili's.
I like Chili's.
Think of how it's changing. Like you used to be like Mariota leaves Oregon, and now you're banking on the backup quarterback. I mean, Oregon could very well have Dylan Gabriel from Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Arch
That's like
Manning,
incredibly likely.
Quin Ewers signs again. Arch Manning is gone. DJU is going to play somewhere else. Like, you always have a decent to good to great and experienced quarterback now if you're a good program.
Yeah.
For
sure.
Honestly,
Absolutely.
I feel really bad, and this is just like, deep Oregon Ducks talk.
Yeah,
But
human to human stuff about Ty Thompson.
Ty Thompson. I
Not the guy.
really feel bad for Ty Thompson.
He keeps coming back, and he keeps on being
overlooked.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyways.
Yeah, I mean, like, you're talking about, like, feeling bad in the moment and all that stuff. Like, as I was watching the game, I, for part of my wife's birthday, but also, like, because we're both big fans, we were at the 1975 concert at Moda Center. And so, like, we skipped the opening act. We go to our seats. I'm watching the game. There's, like, 2.5 minutes to go or something like that. I think Washington had just gone up by 10. The concert starts. So here I am trying to figure out if Oregon is actually, the concert started right when Oregon took it to 34-31 or something like that. It's like, my God, like, all you got to do is get a stop. You get the ball back. You could possibly win. And here I am with one of my favorite bands. And, like, luckily, like, I mentally took it as, like, okay, I'm not going to let this ruin my night because I'm literally seeing one of my favorite bands. But, like, mentally, I had to, like, prepare myself for that possibility.
I didn't even mention I'm on a plane
You're
throughout
on a
this
plane.
entire thing.
Yeah.
The Wi-Fi isn't good enough to get the video feed, so I'm literally just listening to it on the radio feed.
Were you listening to the Ducks feed or the
ESPN feed?
The ESPN feed, okay.
So I'm listening to it on the radio, and I'm just like sitting in my seat. The phone is on the little tray table, blank,
Old school.
blank. It has no images going, and I'm just like fist pumping as things are happening, or like grabbing my head in shock. And I get off the plane, and there's, I think, 3 minutes left. So it's just about before
around the same time we're talking about.
Exactly. And if you've ever been to the Salt Lake City terminal, this is hot airport talk.
Hot airport talk.
Terminal B in the Salt Lake City airport, there's about, no joke, about a mile-long walk
Real long.
that you have to take to get to the baggage claim and to get to the exit of the airport. So I'm looking down at my phone, walking in, and they have like the escalator walkways, you know what I mean?
Sure, yeah.
And so I'm standing on one of those, looking at the phone, and this is as Franklin gets the pass and is going into the end zone.
Right, dives in.
Exactly.
Is he in? Is he out?
Exactly. And so it's like a hot moment, got to pay attention. I don't realize that the end of the walkway
walkway's coming.
is coming up.
You trip.
And I trip and like fall over my back.
No way.
Yes.
Legitimately fall. Huh?
And I like quickly get up. I kind of caught myself on the bag, grab the bag and get out of the way. And Jera's like so unimpressed with me, like scoffs at me and walks off.
You're already stressed to the max.
Yes, and it's like, come on, can I get some comfort here?
Yeah.
And the lady behind me is
Beaver
like,
fan, yeah.
the lady behind me is like, "Are you okay, sir?" And I'm like, "I'm fine. Stop talking to me."
My team is losing.
And so I just like stopped off to the side and watched the end of this game in this like godforsaken tunnel underground in the Salt Lake City airport. It was sad.
Not the best time.
Yeah,
Not
I was sad boy.
Sad boy
Here's
Braxton.
Oregon getting close to national championship, and it feels like it falls so far again.
Yeah. The final thing that I just kind of like...
Dylan Gabriel sounds nice, though.
Sure does. When we were talking about like the chaos of things, because what if Oregon had won the same way, 34-31 or whatever, and now they're a one lost team, but they're a conference champion. Then you had Georgia which took Alabama to the wire. What do you do then? Because you have Georgia, which lost very close game in a championship game. You have Oregon, which won a very close game in a championship game. Would it have been Michigan and then Alabama and then Texas, Alabama, Georgia, leaving Oregon out? Could Oregon have been spurned because of the outcome of the SEC game? Because now the only thing that you're really looking at this point is Georgia, Oregon head-to-head, and their losses in when those occurred.
We were all texting, like obviously on the group, and I was thinking of different scenarios. If that would have, if Oregon would have won the Pac-12 championship, I firmly believe there would not be a Pac-12 champion in the top 4.
I kind of think that might be right.
I was like, I guarantee
they would have gone with 2 SEC teams.
There will not be a Pac-12 champion in the top 4.
I don't think they could have done it. I don't think
they just left off an undefeated Power 5 team.
But that's who they would have put in.
No, because to his point, Oregon is not battling against Florida State, and they would be battling against Georgia.
They'd be
There's
it would be Georgia, Oregon.
That they would take Oregon over Georgia. There's zero chance they would have taken Oregon over Georgia.
I don't know.
No chance.
Yeah. I guess we'll never know.
I guess we'll never know at that point. But I mean, I'm glad that like we don't have to be those outraged.
That would have been probably more heartbreaking than losing to Washington.
Yeah, I mean, like say that you were the winner, like we would have been the Florida State fan.
Burnt down whatever structure the committee is.
Listen, I've already burned down one house. Can we not burn down this one too?
The only saving grace, which I know is very much like an asshole thing to say, is what a grand slam for an anti-Oregon fan. The only thing that would have made this, if you're an anti-Oregon, if you're an anti-Oregon Duck, the only thing that would have made this season better is a Beaver win in the Civil War. Yeah. But to lose to the Huskies twice, and,
it hurt.
And the Pac-12 championship is one of them, and that's who you look at as your rival,
really bad.
Not Oregon State.
At this point, do you hope that Washington just has to win it all?
Right.
No, but it's kind of like, I'm glad that the team that beat me in the playoffs is the champion.
That's the question, though, is like, are you...
And here's the difference between, because you bring this up a lot. If Oregon State was in the playoff, I 100% would be rooting for the Beavers to win.
But Washington is who you look at as your rival.
I want Washington to absolutely get obliterated
by Texas.
See,
by anyone,
everyone.
The
difference.
All of them
is the difference between a rival. That's what I can appreciate, because there's being a fan of a team and being a fan of your conference. I get that. It's like if Oregon State was there, I wouldn't be surprised if you cheer for them. But
Absolutely.
As a Duck, you are not cheering for the Huskies, and that's vice versa. If you're a Husky, you're not cheering for the Duck. That's like you're not so much a fan of the ACC that you cheer for the Tar Heels. If you are a Duke, you cheer for Georgia Tech, but you're not cheering for North Carolina.
You take no solace in rooting for the team.
No.
I agree.
Fuck the Huskies.
I'm presenting a counter argument.
I will say that it would be a little disappointing if Alabama won another national championship.
That would be perfect. I mean, that's kind of like having Alabama playing Michigan is like the committee's response to Spygate or whatever.
I don't I'm not one of those people that cheer for Alabama, but I'm also not like a anti something because it's boring.
I'm not anti-Alabama.
But if they won, the fact that we have not considered them one of the top teams this season, and they've been teetering in like 8 to 10,
wow,
and they fucking win the whole thing. Jesus Christ!
Right,
like that's
like where'd they come from? It's like they're fucking Alabama.
Did they get handed
very anticlimactic?
Something? Yeah,
climactic.
Did they get handed a spot? I think so, but they put themselves in the position where you couldn't turn them away.
So, to finish talking about this, because we've exhausted it, who's your winner? Who do you want to win? Who do you think will win? However you want to answer that question.
I have two answers. I want Washington to win. I love Michael Penix Jr. I love Odunze. I just love the tandem. I want Washington to win. and this isn't so much like a Pac-12 homer take, but I just want Washington to win from this side. To have Washington come out and beat the likes of Alabama and Georgia and Texas, I think that's fucking awesome.
I do think it would be cool, like, the only reason I would be okay with Washington winning is, like, the last dance of the Pac-12 to show that we're the best.
Yeah.
Fuck you for getting rid of us.
We
type
started
thing.
this season by saying Pac-12 is the most competitive conference this year.
Mm-hmm.
And for them to come out, I think ties a perfect bow around everything that we've been saying. It was also pretty, brings a tear to your eye to watch all the Pac-12 mascots at the Pac-12 championship game take a photo together. Fucking Sparky is in the back and all this shit. Like, that was pretty cool.
Swoop.
Now, who do I think is the best team out of the top four? Said it before. I'll say it again.
Texas.
I think Texas is the best team out of the top four. I think a Texas-Alabama
That's what it's going to be.
championship, I think Texas wins that by a touchdown. I'm not going to discount Saban, but I think Texas is the best team out of the top four.
I think that, like, when you look at, like, the Spygate versus the Nick Saban, that side of things, I think that's an incredible. I mean, we all saw the video of Michigan learning that it was Alabama and not Florida State, the groaning, and then all of a sudden, okay, yeah, we're on camera. You got to clap now. Like, we're excited that it's Alabama and not Florida
I thought it was
State.
interesting, Alabama's reaction.
That's not real. That's a gotcha from the media.
Okay.
That was from like 5 years ago when they were number one.
Okay.
Yeah. It was that Nick Saban's rah-rah speech. I think Calvin Ridley wins in that
No,
video.
it was when Saban was in the front and they're like, Alabama's in the playoff, and it's just like a calm clap.
Oh,
that was
gotcha.
a media, like, let's see who we can get, because that was from 2017, 2018 when they were number one.
Okay.
But
now,
I mean,
who do I think would be boring in the title game? I think Michigan would be boring in it.
Yeah.
I don't want Michigan in the title game.
I don't think the committee wants Michigan there
And
either.
I'm glad they have Alabama first.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, and to think that, like, we could have a Sark and Nick Saban rematch, I think would be kind of interesting as well. Sark being, like, one of the only assistants to ever beat Nick Saban.
Or a rematch of UW Alabama. Remember that playoff game?
Yeah.
Jake Browning was the quarterback.
True.
And I'm pretty sure Washington got beat by like 40.
Yeah, it was dirty.
Sark
It
against
was
his
hard to
old
watch.
team there with Washington as well,
Yeah.
which is also compelling. So, again, we think about, like,
I agree with you, Miguel.
and all that.
I think Texas is like the most exciting option, and would be like if Texas wins, I would walk away with that being like, okay, I feel good about it.
Yeah. I mean,
Alabama wins, it's like, ugh, not again. Washington, fuck them. Michigan with the the cheating shit.
Alabama, if Alabama to win this year, I would compare it almost to the Warriors championship from a couple years ago. The one where it was like, wow, like this one felt like the hardest one out of all the ones that you've done.
Like they weren't considered the top team going in.
It was like, no matter what, we all knew that you had Steph, and we all knew you had Clay and Draymond and Steve Kerr. You had everything, and yet we still didn't think you were going to win, despite, and Andre Iguodala was obviously on that team too, but you were old, and we had counted you up. Same thing, what we did with Alabama in their one loss earlier in the year.
Yeah, I do think that it's one of the more exciting 4-team playoffs we've seen in a while. I think...
And that's why they did it.
Yeah.
That's why they did it.
You know, 4 pretty equally matched teams. I don't think that there's like huge outliers, so I'm excited. NFL.
A couple things within the NFL before we get out of here. I am curious, obviously, like you had a rematch, a revenge game between the Eagles and the 49ers. 49ers proved why they were an overdog, a favorite in the on the road against the Eagles. They get that revenge game on the road. And then on the other side, you get a loss by the Chiefs. There was some controversial stuff down the end, a DPI that wasn't called, and all that other stuff. Regardless, they were minus 265 heading into that game. They lose. Taylor Swift was in attendance. I put a Travis Kelce parlay together. It didn't hit. Nor here nor there. I am wondering, when you look at those two teams, which loss was bigger and which team are you then more concerned about?
I think I'm more concerned with the Eagles because of the fashion in which they lost. It was a pretty dominant win by the Niners. And I think that the Eagles, although they have been winning, they haven't been necessarily dominating. In these games where they win, they kind of just irk it out. They don't statistically lead the games. They don't have high-powered offense. They just do what's necessary to win the game.
There were people after this game who were questioning whether or not Jalen Hurts, he goes from MVP favorite to is Jalen Hurts the guy? Well, obviously he's the guy, but David Carr, Derek Carr's brother, was on NFL Network saying they should really consider putting Marcus Mariota.
Well,
at QB1.
if there's one person who knows about quarterback play, it's David fucking Carr. Jesus.
Hot take machine there.
That I agree. I'm more concerned about the Eagles. The Chiefs-Packers game, that was horribly called. Both ways. That hit on Patrick Mahomes, that was not a late hit.
Yeah.
That was brutal.
PI
was
on MVS, call. That's PI.
Yeah.
But that stuck with people more because that was the end of the game. And that was that's not a favor to the Chiefs with the whole late hit. That was horribly called both ways. But I'm not concerned about the Chiefs so much. The Eagles, I'm not concerned about this whole the thing with the NFL and the talking points. It switches in extremes
very quickly.
It's like Jalen Hurts MVP. He gets blown out by the Niners. All of a sudden, the leading MVP frontrunner is Brock Purdy.
Right, where he's nothing without Debo.
No, I'm not gonna discount what Brock. I'm not siding with those people. It's a leading frontrunner for the MVP is the guy who throws quick slants. I mean, he's doing his job, and he's doing it very well.
Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm not concerned about the Eagles players because unlike any other sports in the pros, you're not relying so much with NBA. You could have a Frank Vogel. The players do it. The players perform. It's the Kevin Durant's and the Devin Bookers of the world. In the NFL, coaching the X's and O's, they matter. What concerns me about Philly is not Hurts or Darius Slay or Fletcher Cox. It's the coaching. Sirianni was out-coached by Shanahan. He did not plan for Debo at all. It's like they went into the week and watched film to stop McCaffrey. And he still couldn't do it. That was just a football moment. McCaffrey just ran all over him. But he was out-coached by not planning for somebody like Debo.
And Debo is Brock Purdy's number one.
He was outshined by Shanahan on that one. The coaching is what concerns me because they're not going to change. They're only going to get better. And you got fucking rocked by 30 points.
For me, when I look at the way that the Chiefs lost, because, again, we're looking at, a betting, and, Vegas had the Eagles losing this game, and we had the Chiefs, who were, a heavy favorite in their game. And so, for me, I'm starting to see almost a pattern with the Chiefs. The Chiefs feel like they're becoming a pattern, especially from their wide receivers. The fact that Matt Nagy seems as their offensive coordinator does not seem to be setting up the team to succeed. This is a Mahomes, Kelsey, and a sometimes very aggressive Isaac Pacheco run. But we've talked about this, that we're a Kelsey injury away from being what is this? This is a very amateur is not the right word, but
it's not complete.
It's not complete for sure. So for me, when I see the Chiefs, yes, are they going to win their division? Yes. I mean, you had a loss by the Broncos, and you're going to secure that division. But do I feel more comfortable about the Eagles in the playoffs now versus the Chiefs in the playoffs now? I would say I'm more comfortable with the Eagles in the playoffs now, and that the Chiefs are more likely to lose before a championship game than the Eagles would be.
And it scares me to say this because I've said this before about the Chiefs, and they've proved me wrong and won Super Bowls. But I tend to agree with you. I do see a lot more weakness in the Chiefs overall than I do in the Eagles. I think the Eagles, still will be able to make it to an NFC championship game and possibly lose to a 49ers or whoever they meet there. But I definitely see them making it. If I had to write in my card right now, I would have the Eagles in the NFC championship.
Eagles feel more scrappy, we're going to literally like almost
Scratch
like,
and claw.
Yeah, scrappy. Like we're gonna bunt our way to manufacture a run
small ball,
type of a
baby.
guy. Yeah, that type of a team. They seem like that,
Yeah.
where it's like the Chiefs are gonna do their game plan, and it's either gonna work or it's not gonna work.
Yeah, and I think I obviously have a ton of respect for Andy Reid, but that Chiefs offense has relied a lot on the big play and being able to have, somebody they can, separate with, whether that's a Tyreek Hill or a Travis Kelce. And defenses are catching on to, hey, if we just double team Travis Kelce, they can't necessarily rely on MVS or Rashee Rice or some of these other guys.
Yeah.
And they can't give it to Pacheco every single time.
Right. And the deep ball now continues to work whether you have a DPI or just a guy who drops a ball.
Exactly.
And that they find themselves in those positions a lot, it seems like these days.
I'm agreeing to the point of I'm not worried about the Eagles. If we're just going by the eye test of week 13 and we're comparing, you asked us to compare the Chiefs and the Eagles, I'd probably say the Eagles. But overall, I'm not worried about Philly. But if we're basing it off of the previous week, the reason I would be a little bit more concerned with Philly is because they were heading into a big game and they got rocked. And it's like your preparation for the bright lights of this big game, a potential NFC matchup. I think Kansas City overlooked Green Bay. The same way that everyone's overlooking Jordan Love. He's no bum. Jordan Love is a really good quarterback.
Utah State Aggie, baby.
He doesn't have Aaron Jones, and Jordan Love is fucking bombing it, and he's good. And you have to remember, this is the same, and I'm not surprised by people being worried about Kansas City. I get it. There's reasons to be worried from this season, but when they didn't have Tyreek Hill, people didn't have a lot of hope, and they won the fucking Super Bowl.
They sure did. Yeah.
But this is also a team that's never had. They had Clyde Edwards-Helaire from those years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pacheco is a top 10 running back in the fucking league. The guy is getting 100 yards rushing.
Mm-hmm.
Pacheco they have a running back that they could rely on for 4 or 5 yards per carry. Fun 5 yards to watch. I mean, the guy is pissed. He's a Russell Westbrook whenever he's running.
Mm-hmm.
You fix the drop balls. You have a Rashee Rice that's getting better. Once Kelce clicks and is back, he's not out. He's just not playing his game. I'm not worried about them at all.
Yeah.
I think the big thing about the Chiefs is they need to learn how to succeed without Kelce. And it seems like they're having a hard time doing
Yeah,
that.
there's almost an over-reliance.
We're
to a
watching
degree.
that learning curve right now.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like Travis
There's a lot
Kelce
of
is not
growing
being
pains.
Travis Kelce.
Yeah, speaking of a lot of not even growing pains, but just pain is watching the Patriots play right now. They've scored a total of 13 points in their past 3 games. They've allowed 26 points in those 3 games. They're 0-3. It's the first time in decades that a team has allowed under 10 points in 3 straight games and lost all 3 of those games. And now you have a Thursday night football game, which is the lowest point total in the NFL in 30 years.
They're Iowa.
Yeah.
Without a good defense.
Third is Pittsburgh against New England on Thursday Night Football. No Kenny Pickett and whoever they're going to go with. Is Zappe still going to be the guy? Either way, a 30-point over-under for the Patriots.
I get that it's painful to watch them from the years upon years of successful New England runs. But this season, you knew that Patriots are sucking. Is it more painful
I didn't think
to watch?
it was going to be this bad, though.
Yeah, I don't think
It's
anyone
a
expected
masterclass on how to tank at this point.
Yeah, like a 2-10. I don't. No one expected that. But
They were begging to lose
is it
this
more
week.
painful to watch the Patriots, who don't really have anyone, or is it more painful to watch the Chargers?
Yeah, Chargers.
If you
Yeah,
now-
of all the weeks you could complain about Justin Herbert and the Chargers, this is the one.
that was
I mean,
painful.
everything that I've said about them, obviously, was proven this week. But it's more of a mystery. Like this team doesn't have a deep-rooted fan base like the Chiefs or the Eagles or the Bills, right? So maybe there's not as much pain for the for the newly Charger fan from before, like after San Diego.
Peter.
But you have a healthy Eckler.
To get that one in.
What is happening to Austin Eckler?
Yeah.
18 yards rushing. They scored 6 points against New England.
It's almost as if, like, the Chargers don't know how to multitask, right? It's like all of a sudden it's like, well, we're really good offensively, but they want us to focus on the defense, but we can't do
It's
both
almost
at the
like
same
they have a
time.
shitty fucking coach.
That. I know. It's like you win 6-0 with those guys. It's pretty brutal. And, I mean, gosh, like, the Patriots defense has to be so freaking pissed right now. Dude, it's like, look, we're working our ass
When I
off.
checked
One
that
touchdown. That's all they needed.
When I checked that score and it was 3-0, I was like, this is what's going to ruin our lives.
Right, because that was
the
in our
Chargers.
locks. I was like, are we all of a sudden going to lose because of a 7-6 game or something like that? To
I
the
can
Patriots?
swallow the Packers and the Bengals win.
Yeah. If we lost that,
Oh, my
would've been
God. I would have been
brutal.
livid.
I don't know if anyone can swallow what is happening in New York. We've got just a couple of minutes left. I'm curious your guys' thoughts about the in and out, the drama going on with Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson now possibly thrust back into the starting quarterback role, but then he's talking about being, like, there's reports about him being reluctant about going back in because he could get hurt. Obviously, like, I mean, it's like you're calling on me again because you, like, went away from me because you thought these other two guys, like Tim Boyle, like, you thought he could be the answer. Like, what is, like, when you
Who's
talk
the
about
other guy they brought in?
I don't even know.
Simeon?
Trevor Simeon was the
Jesus.
other guy, yeah. So then it's like, wait, you're going to come back to me, like, and you're going to try and make this work again? I am kind of curious, again, from an optics perspective, if you think, like, this could affect, like, things down the way. It's like, is this, like, almost career suicide where you go, well, no, I'm not going to come back in because, you know, I could get hurt.
It's career suicide either way.
Yeah,
Yeah, because here's the thing. He doesn't have enough positive experience to take that stance. You need playing time. You need film. You need to be able to show that you're a team guy who will step up when the team needs you and you're willing to play. Because if I'm another team who's willing to look at Zach Wilson even as a backup, backups need to be willing to step up when the team needs you.
When the team needs you,
and if the team needs you and you're like, no, I'm too good for this, or you
I
guys
could get
didn't
hurt.
You guys didn't appreciate me. It's like, well, fuck, I'm not going to pay you however million amount of dollars that we pay our backup to come play for me next year.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that as far as increasing your stock with other teams and be like, you have to be a team player and you want to be willing to play. But I do see his point.
Yeah, absolutely see his point.
I mean,
yeah, selfishly, absolutely.
You have fucked with me all season. You put the blame on me all season when it's the entire offense's fault, but you put it on me. I think other teams that could be looking at him, whether second string or third string, they're smart enough to see that. They're smart enough that if he says, fuck you guys, I'm not doing this, I don't necessarily think that's going to ruin his chances because other teams can see that it's the Jets' fault. Now, I don't think Zach Wilson's very good, but if it came down to this, I think they would see that, yeah, they were toying with you.
Well, Zach,
yeah, but half the purpose of being a backup is being a team guy. That's my only point to that. Is like, you're most likely not going to play a lot. We just need you to be a team guy.
He wasn't marked as a backup from the get-go, though.
Yeah, but that's what he is now.
Yeah,
I think it's fairly safe to assume that.
I mean,
but I get what you're saying.
Do you think that he'll ever be a starting quarterback?
No, he's not good enough.
Again?
No,
he's not good enough.
I was gonna say, someone want to bet on that.
If somebody, if he's a backup and then the first string goes down, yeah.
But like, will he enter?
Will he
team
start a
where
season?
He is, yeah.
Here's the thing with the Jets. Like, we made a bet in the beginning of the season that I'm going to lose, that the Jets make the playoffs, because I truly thought they were going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
this is a completely different Jets team. I'm going to lose that bet because I made that bet with Aaron Rodgers in mind.
Yeah, I mean,
the
absolutely.
entire team seems like gave up when he went down.
Yeah.
If
not immediately, but they did.
You know that this is a completely different team with Aaron Rodgers there. There would be a certain excitement with receivers. Randall Cobb would be going off. Lazard would be going off.
Aaron Rodgers wouldn't allow his teammates to have a negative perspective.
Yeah.
Like the whole vibe, the whole energy and attitude of that team would be completely different. There's no doubt about it.
On the other side of things, for players that are over exceeding their expectations, I don't know about expectations. Let me reset this. Who right now is your MVP guy? Because obviously the MVP recently has been a quarterback award. You were talking about how Brock Purdy is now the favorite, despite the fact that he loses a couple games now that Debo's back. He looks like the MVP. But who's the guy right now in your mind?
To me, I think the Brock Purdy argument is ridiculous.
I agree.
I mean, he has, and again, you can nitpick and say that this person has this defense and has this receiver and all that. You can say that kind of throughout the league, but Brock Purdy has all pro motherfuckers around him. I don't think Brock Purdy when I think MVP. Push that aside. My two front runners for MVP, Jalen Hurts and Tyreek. I don't give a fuck if Tyreek gets 2,000 yards in 17 games, 1 or 2 more games more than Calvin Johnson. That's incredible. The fact that people are discounting and saying, he has to do it in 16 or it doesn't count. How many times has that happened? 2,000 yards. And he called it. He called it in the beginning of the season.
Called a shot.
If I had to pick one, I'd say Tyreek Hill. As much as I love Jalen Hurts, I just don't want to continue this trend that you might as well rename the MVP award if you're only going to give it to quarterbacks.
Yeah.
You're not. The last non-quarterback to win it was Adrian Peterson in 2012. That's over a decade ago. I think McCaffrey deserves the MVP. I think Tyreek Hill deserves the MVP.
I think you could even throw CJ Stroud in there with the way he's been performing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no doubt he's going to win Rookie of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
But it's goddamn. Then you look at, what is it called? The most valuable player.
Right. That team was supposed to be rebuilding, and they're in playoff contention.
The Houston Texans are generational shit without CJ Stroud. He has turned that, and not to take away from Tank Dell and some of the other pieces that they have in Texas.
Right.
Obviously,
Will
that
Anderson,
helps.
they get,
But there's no doubt CJ Stroud has been an absolute miracle for that team. It's hard to deny. But I do agree. Tyreek Hill, kind of, in my eyes, far and away should win this
is
award.
hard to go back and forth because you say that you take Brock Purdy off of the Niners. Well, technically, you saw that in the NFC Championship, and even Debo said if we had Brock Purdy, it wouldn't be close. Right? So is he valuable there? Yes.
But we've seen what Brock Purdy is without Debo.
Right. Now, you take Tyreek out of Miami wouldn't be in this spot.
They're subpar.
I have to keep Jalen Hurts there. You take Jalen Hurts out of Philly.
Definitely. I love Marcus, but Marcus
they
isn't
would
doing
not
the same
be
thing.
there.
Maybe.
I just think this whole thing of we're going to give you a consolation prize by naming you Offensive Player of the Year so we can give the MVP to this person is no different than here's a Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year because no chance you're getting the fucking Heisman.
Bo Nix, by the way.
Right. So that's my point. He brought that up earlier.
Yeah.
Your point is they sweep these awards. My counter to that is they're giving Bo Nix the consolation of a Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year because no chance he's getting the fucking Heisman.
So we've got 2 minutes left here. I'll take Jaden Daniels if you take the field.
That's just dumb, Pete.
No, it's not. I don't think it is.
I have been
because I don't think Penix wins it, and
I think
that
the
Bo
other thing
Nix,
is he's been on Jaden Daniels for
I have been
the
on the
last
Jaden
5
he
weeks.
gets everyone else.
I've been on the Jaden Daniels.
You take everyone
bus
else
for Heisman for the last few weeks.
Yeah.
But I will make a bet. I'm not going to take the field. I think let's each pick one.
Okay.
Neither of them win. It's a wash.
Okay.
I think after the Pac-12 championship, I am fine switching from Jaden Daniels to Michael Penix Jr.
Okay.
I'll take Penix Jr. to win Heisman. You take Jaden Daniels.
What, 20?
20.
All right, there it is. Our picks of the week will be on the Twitter at official IJMS once again. And make sure, lock it in on your calendars.
Yeah, mark your calendar.
January 10th.
Is that a Wednesday?
It is a Wednesday.
Be there or be square.
6 p.m. Jimmy's Sports Bar will have more information coming. But very excited for the upcoming weekend of games. We are going to win one of these locks. It tickles me everywhere.
No. Say this is another losing lock.
Okay, it's another losing lock.
Reverse.
Okay,
Let's reverse
we're gonna
psychology
do it.
this.
We suck. Clear us.
Ball hard.
Can't lose.